I think.
Oh, well, then we got the word asinine in. That's good.
I'm not sure, but I think we're live.
Let me know when you think.
Yeah.
Folks, if we're live, welcome to ATL Prime Sports.
Yeah. Well,
We're going to be a little delayed.
I've got a separate thing over here running, and that's what I'm kind of double checking this feed with.
Tell you this
All right,
atmosphere.
yeah, we're here. We're good.
All right, let's go 3, 2, 1. The Braves lost to the Red Sox 9-0 today in Fenway, dropping to 34-25 on the season. It's Atlanta's first shutout loss of the season. Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the whole gang. Larry Gardner in Adairsville, TC in Woodstock area, and of course our fabulous producer Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee. I almost said it the opposite way, which would have been absolutely atrocious. But you can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, and of course Apple and Spotify. Again, at ATL Prime Sports. Personal X's at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Jr. for Wayne, at Quarter Todd for TC Todd Quarter, and at LG for Real Though for the voice of the Rome Emperors, Larry Gardner. And Dave Cohen will be joining us tonight, voice of the Georgia State Panthers. Wayne, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Well, I'm struggling because for about the last month, I've had to live in a different place than my house because we're doing renovations, which is why we've kind of been off the YouTube for a while. But they're only a week behind right now, so hopefully they'll catch up and be done by next week.
We're happy to be back. It has been a little bit a little bit of a month hiatus. Larry, how you doing this evening, buddy?
Man, everything is well, JJ. I appreciate you asking. Wayne, I know it is chaotic, man. Anytime you go through home renovations and you have to be outside of what your normal dwelling place is, it's not a good feeling. But, man, I know you'll be back to norm here soon. We'll continue to root for you. And good to be with you guys. It does feel like it's been forever, especially for me being on video. It's been a hot minute, for lack of a better term. But it's good to be with the gang all again, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Todd, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing fantastic. Oklahoma and Texas in the Women's College World Series final in softball. Let me tell you, if you guys ever get a chance, go out there and see that venue in Oklahoma City, because I'll tell you right now, it's second to none. Every seat is really good. I saw the finals between Oklahoma and Auburn years ago, and it was spectacular. The tickets are cheap. Everything's affordable, and you see some excellent softball and two teams in Oklahoma and Texas for the Red River rivalry. The last time they'll play each other as conference mates in the Big 12. They'll be in the SEC next year, and boy, the SEC is already loaded in softball. Add these two teams in, holy smokes. Will Oklahoma go for the four-peat, or will Texas take them down and hook them and get their national championship? And their head coach is quite a story. We don't have time to go into that, but if you get a chance, look it up on ESPN.com today. And this guy has done remarkable things in his coaching career, not only in Texas, but also in Oregon.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Not as well as Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson, though. Jefferson signed a 4-year, $140 million extension, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Now, him and rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy can get to work. What's on tap? You've seen Dave Cohen's face in the bottom of your screen there. The Georgia State Panthers voice will join us talking Sunbelt football and the new college football ruling. We're going to talk a little Braves. Can they win the World Series without Acuna? We'll go around the horn in MLB with some news and notes, plus some NBA and Stanley Cup finals talk. We got a loaded show. We're going to try and get to Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese and the whole WNBA saga right now. But first, without further ado, a new NCAA ruling will allow student athletes to be paid directly from their colleges or universities. As to how this will affect Georgia State University, we bring on Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers. Dave, thanks as always for coming on. How are you? And how will this affect Georgia State University athletics overall?
Well, yeah, let me start out by saying appreciate y'all having me back on. Always enjoy coming on ATL Prime Sports. And you're right, everybody's on the show tonight. When I first jumped on and I saw the background for Wayne up there in Memphis, now that he said he's not living at his house, I thought he was maybe living part-time at FedEx Forum. And that was not just a background, but actually him broadcasting this show live from the concourse at FedEx Forum. So, Wayne, it's good to know that that's just a video background and you're not actually moving into FedEx Forum there in Memphis. But, yeah, you know, I've been on with you guys now for a number of years, and we've talked about the direction that college athletics is heading. And it seems like the changes and the morphing process is happening faster and faster as we move along. You know, the divide between the haves and the have-nots is getting wider and wider as the group of fives try their best to play catch up and keeping up with the Joneses in the Power Five. You know, obviously I don't think that's going to ever happen. When we talk about Power Five and we talk about group of five, you know, really in reality, what we're talking about, number one, are budgets. What is Georgia State's budget athletically? What is a typical average Sun Belt athletics budget? And then compare that to what we'll call a typical Southeastern Conference or Big Ten budget. And you really can't compare. It's like comparing apples and oranges. There's no comparison. And the divide is just getting further and further. The constant, I mean, it seems like in my world, all I ever hear about is striving for new revenue streams. It's just like it never ends. And it's just become more and more of an issue. And for both Power Five and Group of Five, because you know the mentality, when is enough enough? And you know, I don't think we'll ever reach a point where enough is enough. I can tell you that, you know, Georgia State's football program has a concerted effort right now underway to try to increase the NIL money that they've already raised. And in comparison to what some of your Power Five schools are playing with NIL money wise, what Georgia State has raised is not even comparable. But we understand in our world in the Sun Belt Conference that we're going to have to be able to offer something if we're going to be in quote unquote the market to be able to attract some of the higher profile student athletes. I'm not talking about the guys that are going Big Ten and Big 12 and SEC. I'm talking about typical group of five, you know, football players and basketball players for that matter, and even baseball. Even though I don't know how much money's being thrown around NIL wise for baseball, college baseball, but I can tell you, just having gotten back a couple of weeks ago from the Sun Belt baseball tournament over in Montgomery, Georgia State's already had 10 plus players leave the program and enter the portal. So the craziness is not just college football. It's not just men's and women's basketball. It's even reached college baseball. Again, I don't think we're talking about the same kind of NIL money, you know, at least at the Sun Belt level. But I don't know. It's you know, it's a new world of college athletics that we're living in. And I say that's a new world since I was on your show the last time. Yeah. It's a new world when it comes to college athletics. There's just so many things that are kind of hanging out there with, as we were talking off air, you know, Clemson and Florida State are trying like the Dickens legally to find a way to extricate themselves from the ACC. You know, if that happens, the domino effect, as TC was saying, what happens to North Carolina? What happens to Miami? What happens to Georgia Tech, who's in the Atlanta market? My point is that it's just the change happening quicker and quicker, and some schools are having a hard time keeping up. And it's in a very, very fast and short amount of time. it is changing and has changed already the landscape in college athletics.
You're listening to Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers, right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can catch Dave on X, formerly known as Twitter, at GA State Voice. TC, take it away, man. I think you had a question for Dave before you dropped out real quick.
Yeah, hey Dave. You mentioned it. It's dropping all down to from football to baseball to other non-revenue sports, and here at the Division II level at Clayton State, as soon as the basketball season ends or whatever sport it is, they don't have NIL at that level, but they surely do have the transfer portal, and it's really hard on these coaches because not only do you have to recruit new kids that come in, you got to recruit the kids to stay that you want to stay, and then the ones you want to go, you don't mind them going. And to me, this is a very difficult situation on these coaches. They're going to have to come up with some type of transfer portal rules where maybe a kid can only transfer out if a coach leaves or he has one other transfer after that, and that should be it. In terms of the NL money, I hope to goodness they don't get the federal government involved. They've got their own problems that they need to solve. They need to stay away from college athletics and let the administrators in college athletics handle it. I mean, you just mentioned at Georgia State with the with the situation, trying to recruit players that aren't going to go to the Power Five. But when you get a player at Georgia State and you develop that person, then all of a sudden he's a really good player. And then who swoops in to take it? The Georgias, the Alabamas, whoever. You can't even keep the elite players that you do groom because you can't financially keep them. Your thoughts on all that?
Well, everything you said is correct. And basically every coach, I think, looks at his roster now on only a year-by-year basis. Monday I met two of our new basketball players. Jonas Hayes, who's going to enter his third season as head coach, has basically had to turn over the roster in each of his first two seasons, not based on his desire to turn over the roster, but the fact that our players were all, for the most part, we did lose a couple of three seniors, but the rest of the crew went into the transfer portal. I mean, already this year, players that I know who were Georgia State players who have now left. One has landed at Tulsa. One just landed at Syracuse. One has gone back to Gardner-Webb. They went initially out of high school, Gardner-Webb to Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt to Georgia State back to Gardner-Webb. So they've made a complete 360 from the transfer portal standpoint. Let me bring up two things and we can talk about this. These are two aspects of the transfer portal, as we refer to it, that don't really get talked a lot about. Number one, okay, they are still, at least now, they are still student athletes or athletes students. Players who are transferring to multiple schools, like our leading scorer who just announced on Twitter, now known as X, that he was committing to Syracuse, out of high school, went to Wake Forest to Georgia State to Syracuse. So he'll be making his third stop. My point is, from a graduation standpoint, in an NCAA that used to put a lot of emphasis on graduation rates, there's no way these kids are going to be graduating in a normal, what we'll call a normal time frame, when you're jumping on an almost annual basis from school to school. The other part of the transfer portal that not a lot of people talk about, what is the number of student athletes who enter the transfer portal and never get out of the transfer portal? They leave, in many cases, a situation where they were on a full ride, but because everybody else is getting into the transfer portal, ooh, I got to get into the transfer portal too. They jump, they leave what is a pretty good situation, and they go into the transfer portal, never to be heard or seen from again.
Larry, go ahead and get a comment on that, man. I saw you shaking your head. Go ahead and get a comment and get in here, man.
No, he's absolutely right. And some of the things that just baffle me are the people that grind their 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade years in high school to get the notoriety that they get on Twitter to try to get offers because they want to be seen.
Yep.
They get something that could potentially work for them, and because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses, they jump in the portal and they go into the twilight zone and they go into an abyss. And they don't think in terms of longevity, how they can hinder their futures by trying to keep up with people. When they lose sight of the student first and athletics second, now the priority in the minds of not only the kids but the parents are, I need to get you as an athlete first, because they seem to think that their kid has got some kind of shot at being able to make bukus of dollars by being able to be recognized in collegiate sports. And it's an epidemic is what it is. And unfortunately, you're starting to see the trickle down effects everywhere, not just in the group of five, but in the power fives. And my question, Dave, is simply this: what is the end game? What is the end game for the NCAA? What is the end game for the athlete? What is the overall end game for the NIL people who are fighting and going in and throwing all these dollars to these kids that could drop it in one season? What is the true end game of it all?
I don't know if when you sign an NIL deal, like hypothetical situation, Larry's a great college basketball player at school A. School B at the end of the year contacts Larry and said, hey, if you jump into the transfer portal, I can guarantee you this amount of NIL money. My rhetorical question is, if Larry makes the jump from school A to school B, does he, number one, have to sign some sort of a binding contract that binds him at least for one season to school B if he's going to be paid X amount of dollars? I think everybody, scholarships have always been a 1-year deal. People think, oh, because I signed coming out of high school with whatever school that I'm going to be there for 4 years, and that they're bound to give me a scholarship for 4 years. Scholarships are 1 year at a time, and that's on the part of the university. Now, it used to be, well, as you know, it used to be that if a collegiate student athlete wanted to transfer, they had to sit out. Well, that rule has been kicked to the curb. Now you can transfer every year and you don't have to sit out if you want. You can transfer, after each of your collegiate seasons, and you don't have to sit out. I think the only rule is, for example, if I'm a great, say I'm a pretty good basketball player at school A, and I start there and I'm playing in November and I'm playing in December, I go home from Christmas, somebody gets in my ear and says, hey, why don't you transfer to school B over here? If I came back and said, hey, I'm not going to play the rest of the year, I'm going to transfer to school B, I can't go to school B. It's pick up and start playing in January. But Lord knows the way things are going, that'll be okay in the not too distant future. Like professional sports, if the Braves trade for somebody to come in and replace Acuna, that guy can come in right away and play. So I think collegiately it's probably going to head that way in the not too distant future as well.
Yeah, it's super interesting, Dave, and I'm with you. I would like to see what these guys' degrees say. Does it say, or like, let's use DJ Uiagalelei? Does it say Clemson? Does it say Oregon State? Does it say Clemson, Oregon State, Florida State, all on one diploma? It's just getting ridiculous.
Agree the school that they actually graduated from.
Well, I'm speaking tongue in cheek, Todd. It was all a joke.
Let me tell you where I think this.
It's gotten absurd where it used to be rare to see a guy play at 2 or 3 schools. Now it's just a common occurrence, and I don't see how it's sustainable. But we could talk about this for days to come. But I do want to get into some Sun Belt football with you. The Sun Belt's stubborn. They're the last conference that's going to keep divisions. Does that hurt or help the Sun Belt Conference in the football realm of things?
Honestly, I kind of like it the way it is right now, even though the Sun Belt East is extremely, extremely tough. I'm anxious to see how Dell McGee and his staff can navigate our schedule and our conference schedule in what will be his first season. But I like how the Sun Belt has it. Actually, you play in the East to win the East. You play in the West to try to win the West, and the winner of the East and the West are going to meet in the Sun Belt playoff at the higher seeded home stadium. I kind of like the way that's set up. It's good, of course, the Sun Belt has managed to get that on national television, which brings a lot of eyeballs to Sun Belt football. But what is the benefit? I ask this again rhetorically. If we the Sun Belt all of a sudden decides we're going to get away from divisions and just we're going to play one division of 14 schools. What's the benefit of that?
You know what, Dave? That's an interesting question, because now the bigger conferences are getting rid of the divisions and they're going 1 versus 2. Say Michigan and Ohio State finish 1 and 2 in the Big Ten. They could play back-to-back weeks. It's because they could, if they finish 1 and 2 in the regular season, they'll most certainly play for the Big Ten title. Now that they're getting out these conferences are growing into super conferences now, I would rather have them stay in divisions, especially the SEC. Or now the Big 12, which has always had 1 versus 2. I'd like to see the Big 12. They got 18 teams. Split them up in divisions, East versus West. Do the geography where it's easier for the schools to travel, especially now that they're coast to coast. The Big Ten is a coast to coast conference, so you'd like to have a Western side and you'd like to have an Eastern side, and then you play all the teams in your Eastern division, and then you just play 1 and 2 out of the West instead of doing this mega travel, which would make a lot more sense and taxing on the athletes than just putting them in 1 versus 2 and putting them all in 1 division. I like the way the Sun Belt's doing it too.
Listen, where we're headed with this, and we know this is where it's going. The SEC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 are going to take the Miamis and the Clemsons and the Florida States and the North Carolinas.
Correct.
Maybe Georgia Tech because of the Atlanta market. And they're going to go off. I think this will only affect college football, but they're going to go off and start their own college football Power 5 super conference that cuts their own television deal, and that'll be the end of it. And the schools that are in the ACC and that are in the Big 12, if they don't all go, that fall out of the Power 5 super conference that we're referencing, they'll filter down, kind of like what we've seen with the 2 remaining schools in the Pac-12, and the group of 5, whether we refer to it as a group of 5 or not. But I think we're headed towards the ongoing chase to keep as much of the television revenue to themselves as possible is going to result in the super conference. I think we're headed that way. I think it's going to be here sooner than later. Now, is that 3 years? Is that 5 years? I don't know. But the way things are moving and changing in the world of college athletics now, it could be sooner than that. Who knows? But everybody is the only concern right now for every school and every conference, and it's a bigger story for another day, the $2.8 billion ruling
Yes.
of the student athletes with retro payments for the past 10 years that every school and every conference is going to be responsible for paying into. That's going to be a game changer as well, and that might facilitate a quicker move to a super conference.
No question, Dave. When you look at the Pac-12, I don't think it's going to exist. I know there's 2 teams left under a contract and all this jazz, but it's just not going to happen. I'm going to say this now. You're probably going to get about between 60 and 75 teams to survive in the Power 5 or whatever in the hell they're going to call it, Power 3 or 2 or super conferences or whatever. And then the rest are going to go by the wayside, and they'll have to have their own national championship. That's my thought.
And that's what'll happen. And the group of 5 or whatever it's known at that point will have its own championship, just like currently FCS has its own championship.
Yeah, it's definitely moving that direction. But I think what's interesting, and we don't have a lot of time left. I don't want to keep everybody here for hours on end. But I do
Why
think
not?
it's very
Fun.
interesting how the Pac-2 is still ratified in the contract of college football for the next 4 to 5, 6 years, because it's ratified in the 12-team playoff. It's written into the 14-team playoff that's about to come up. So I personally think if the Mountain West and the Pac-12 can come to an agreement, I still think there'll be a Power 5 somehow, some way. I just think it's going to be a Power 5 super conference. Like Dave said, I think we're all in agreement there. I think it's going to be the top 70, 75 programs, and it's going to be. I still believe in a Power 5. I do. I think it's going to call for a Power 5 because that's what the models all project. And until those models are corrected to say Power 3, Power 4, whatever they word it as, I'm going to say there's going to make a comeback. I have the
Not
ACC and the
chance.
Pac-12 making a comeback. That's what I'm calling right now.
Yeah, good luck with that. Not a chance.
Oh, I don't know. I might be the only one in that, but until it's written out, it's there, and that is fact. So
Contract written to be broken, number one, and number two, they don't have a television contract where the diddly poo, the SEC and the Big Ten is going to run college football, and that's the way it's going to be. And the Big 12, I think, will survive. We'll see if the ACC does, but the Pac-12 is history, and it really is sad because we've all agreed all conferences should be local.
well, all right, guys. Let's finish up with the Sun Belt Conference preview real quick. Dave, give us East versus West. College football news has App State, James Madison kind of tying, and then the West is really wide open. Your thoughts on Georgia State and where they'll finish in relativity to the top or bottom?
Can I be totally honest with you?
Absolutely.
You don't have a clue, right?
I have no idea. And here's why. We lost so many players and have brought in so many transfers. I don't know that right now, being the beginning of summer and heading into summer workouts and not even, approaching fall camp, I'd be shocked if anybody at Georgia State or any other program in the Sun Belt, because they all lost a lot of great players. I mean, look at James Madison, how good they were. Their head coach bolted, went to Indiana, and I think took like 11 players with them. Their starting quarterback, McLeod, he's now probably going to be your starting quarterback at Texas State. He transferred within the Sun Belt from the East to the West. My point is, I don't think any of the 14 coaches have a solid idea about who their starting two deeps are going to be. We have so many new players. Now, some of them you can look at and say, well, yeah, I mean, obviously they brought this kid here because, he's going to be an impact player. Well, I hope so. But right now, especially at Georgia State, I think it is safe to say, and Sean Elliott would tell me this every year. I know he's not with us anymore, but he would say every position is open at the beginning of fall camp. Now, deep down, he knew who a lot of his starters were going to be. Obviously, I honestly think now that with a new coaching staff and so many new faces, I don't think you could pencil in names at every position and put your two deeps together, but I don't know how solid that would be by the time we get to game week 1, when Georgia State, gets ready to take the field over at Bobby Dodd Stadium at Georgia Tech for the opener on August 31. Again, they've got to get through summer workouts. They got to get through fall camp, and then we'll see how the dust settles from a standpoint of putting together and organizing a roster into your starters and your immediate backups. And I would think it's safe to say, just having seen what I've seen since the end of the college football season at every school from JMU and App State and Louisiana, the number of players that left the program and went into the portal, the number of players that came out of the portal and went into those programs, I think there's a lot of unknowns at every single Sun Belt football program, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Dave,
I agree with that.
I was going to say that's really well said, because when you look at these conference picks, you hit it on the head. Georgia State's predicted to finish 6th in the East. Their portal losses on both sides of the ball are huge, And you mentioned it, the kid Jordan McLeod will be the senior quarterback for Texas State. They're predicted to win the West, and of course Joey Aguilar, the quarterback for App State, the senior, they're predicted to win the East. So you're right on the money, but there are a lot of certainties and there are a lot of holes within these teams. But it seems like Georgia State though had the most transfers.
We had a lot. I'm looking at the list right now, which is my chicken scratch list because we haven't released a roster yet. This is me keeping up with who's gone out, who's exited and who's come in. I can tell you that, just in the quarterback position, going into spring camp when Sean Elliott was still the head coach at Georgia State, we all figured it would be Zach Gibson, the Johns Creek High School kid who came out of Akron, went to Georgia Tech, and then transferred to Georgia State. Nice kid. But now they've brought in a transfer quarterback who's played at both Pitt and Penn State, and they brought in another quarterback from Middle Tennessee State. And for all I know, there's another kid they brought in a quarterback. I couldn't tell you which of the four right now would be the front runner.
And that's college football right now, folks. At the Group of Five level, at the lower Power Five, it's crazy. The movement is absolutely insane. Kirby Smart said it previously at the Destin SEC meetings just now. He goes, I used to look at a roster, come June, July, it's set. Not anymore. Not with that July transfer portal. So
let me tell you one other thing real quick, and I know you don't want to go long in this segment, but this is how crazy it is. So in December of 2023, season over, we won the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. We get back from Boise, and of course, as soon as you get back from Boise, when the plane has barely hit the tarmac, players are jumping into the portal, that quick. We got two running backs to go with our lone remaining running back, Freddie Brock, because Marcus Carroll transferred to Missouri. They bring in C.J. Beasley, who we're familiar with because he played at Coastal Carolina, and then they brought in this other kid, Dominique Thomas from Clemson. Well, I'm over at spring practice a couple of those spring practice sessions the first week back for Georgia State. It was like in February. It was in February. Yeah, I think it was in late February, early March. Maybe it was March. So I'm watching Beasley and I'm watching Brock and I'm watching Dominique Thomas. And I'm like, man, we're going to be solid in the run game. Dominique Thomas already transferred out. The Clemson kid was on campus for maybe 2 months.
Yep.
We had another kid who transferred, a linebacker, Martez Thrower, came in from Kentucky.
I've heard of him.
He's already transferred out.
Correct.
You know what? The same thing at Clayton State. I knew kids that before the end of the season, because they had a tough season this year. A lot of new kids at Clayton State. The men had a tough season. The women made the conference tournament. The men did not qualify. There were kids already leaving before the last game was even playing. So
that's where we are. That's where we are.
That's where we are. That just sums it up. And that's at the Division II level, where there is no NIL. But like I said, they move in and out just like D1.
Yeah, in basketball, with regards to the transfer portal, at the D2 level, let's use Clayton State as an example. They won't lose many players. They will gain players that, probably are marginal Division I players who are looking for a place to play. That's where the Clayton States and the Peach Belt schools will thrive, right, on players coming into and or out of the transfer portal.
Yeah, we got a kid from a transfer from Georgia State this year. You talked about that earlier with me.
Right.
So yeah, it's fast and furious in that transfer portal at all times, and every single coach is saying it at every single level of sports, from baseball, football, basketball. They're all transferring at an alarming rate. Dave, that's about all the time we have. I don't want to keep you all day, although I could. Enjoyed the conversation. Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers. Check him out on Twitter at GA State Voice. Dave, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Always enjoy coming on and talking with you guys. And Wayne, have a good night's sleep there at FedEx Forum.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a stop by the concession stand and get me something for dinner here in a minute.
Get you some popcorn and a big Coke.
Right.
All right, we'll see you guys. Larry, take
We'll
it easy.
see ya. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Always a great interview with the voice of the Panthers, Dave Cohen, talking all things college football with us. Let's move on from college football to Major League Baseball real quick. The news of Ronald Acuna Jr. missing the rest of the season is old. But can the Braves win the World Series without him? It seems like, guys, they've been up and down since his injury. It looks like the Bats were going to wake up a couple nights ago. They scored, 9 in a loss to Oakland. They scored 8 in game 1 of the 2-game set versus Boston. You think, hey, they're waking up. The Bats are waking up. Then what happens? They get one hit today and lose 9-0. I mentioned it earlier, their first shutout of the season. Look, I think they have a small shot, but without Acuna, it's going to be really tough to catch lightning in a bottle twice. But they do have a shot because this pitching rotation's for real. Max Fried set a career high with 13 Ks in that game 1 win against Boston. And his curveball looked mighty, mighty fine. One of the best in the game when it's working that well. But look, the roster's much better set, guys. You already have Kelnick. You already had Duvall. So maybe they go make a trade. I've heard Randy Arozarena possibly making his way to Atlanta by the trade deadline. So there's definitely some rumors, and Alex Anthopoulos is always trying to build a winner. Guys, again, small chance. Obviously, I think they can do it. They've done it once, but to catch lightning in a bottle twice, I'd take the field against the Atlanta Braves right now. I just don't think they have enough hitting. Their big guys aren't doing it, Riley and Olsen included. It just doesn't seem like they get going. Although Olsen's pretty hot right now, he's going to have to get hotter. Same with Riley. And they need Kelnick and Duvall to wake up at the bottom of the order. Larry, your thoughts, man, on the Braves' chances of winning the World Series without Acuna?
They've done it once. They can do it again.
Yep.
And the reason being is because of the man that's in control of the puppet strings, and Alex Anthopoulos. He is always going to make sure the team is in position to compete for titles. He is not in the business of winning division titles. He's in the business of the championship rings. That's what he wants. In the same manner, and the thing that baffles me, and I've been a Braves fan my entire life, is the Braves have traditionally had bad months of May. May has always been the poison skull and crossbones month in the season for the Atlanta. For probably since 2018, 2019, May has traditionally been the month where it has been absolutely atrocious. Conversely speaking, June has usually been the month where they turn the ship around and they get real hot real quick. You'll see traditional Junes where they go the entire month and lose 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
I don't think this June will be like that. If they can get through the month of June, with a less than 10 scheduled throughout the month, I would consider it positive. But to make the answer shorter, it can be done. Double A is going to make sure that he's going to put him in position if he has to go make trades and get people who aren't not necessarily well known by others, or who other teams are ready to get rid of and say done. When he did it with Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, and Eddie Rosario, those were people nobody had ever heard of, and all 3 of them played vital parts in the 21 title run. So yes, it can be done. Be patient. It's a long season. It's a long way to September.
For sure.
A long way to September. And just from what I know, from what I see all the time, the pitching staff from Atlanta, Gwinnett, Mississippi, and Rome is in good shape. Trust me, it's in good shape. So if he can get a hitter or two to start getting, and they won't never say this, but they are really missing the guidance and the leadership that both Eric Young and Ron Washington had on this squad. They will
Agreed.
never admit it, but you can definitely see it in the way that they go about business, the way that their body language is showing on the field when things are not going correctly, and it's unfortunate, but the injury bug is really biting them a lot this year. That's not traditional for them as well. So those are things that build championship mantra, though. You don't necessarily have to be the division winner to win the World Series. You just got to get hot at the right time.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Striking twice, Lightning can do it. I mean, it's tough, but look, the Braves were in a lot worse position in 21. They were in a bad division. They were, what, 44 wins? They were under 500 when it happened, and then the second half of the season happened. Todd, your chances of the
Look,
Braves
in
winning the
20,
World Series without Acuna. Go ahead, buddy.
look, in 21, going into August 1st, this team was right around the 500 mark. They caught fire and won it all, and Thoughtless traded it for an entire new outfield. To me, Ronald Acuna isn't even the biggest loss for this team. The biggest loss is Scott Strider. That's your ace. That's your bulldog on the mound. That's your power pitcher postseason guy that you need. That's, to me, the biggest loss. They can get in the trade market and potentially get outfielders like they did in 21. The question is, are they going to be able to get themselves a power pitcher? Who's going to be available at the trade deadline? And right now, nobody knows that answer because there are only 4 teams in the National League that are above 500. There are 4 teams in the AL Central that are above 500. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season? In other words, it's early. It's early. These things will play themselves out. Atlanta has a chance to win the World Series. Everybody has a quote unquote small chance. There are 30 teams. Yes, some teams have better chances than others, but once you get into the 12 team, it is now a tournament. It's not a playoff, it's a tournament. Any one of those teams has a good chance of winning, and especially the wild card, because the division winner that has to sit out a week, to me, is at a huge, huge disadvantage while the team keeps playing. Baseball is a game where you need to keep playing, not sitting out and playing simulation games for a week. That hurts. So to me, the tournament is wide open, and the small chance that they have a chance to win, it's way too early for all this. We'll see what the trade deadline shakes out. We'll see how they play till the trade deadline and after the trade line. And then when we get to the playoffs, we may have a better idea, because I think Atlanta is definitely going to be in the playoffs unless they fall apart. And I don't see that, even though they've had a lot of injuries. A lot of teams have had a lot of injuries. The Dodgers have had a lot of injuries. Nobody feels sorry for you. You have to play over them. The back of the baseball card tells me Atlanta lineup is going to be fine, even without Acuna.
It's going to be interesting moving forward. We're all correct. I'm not as optimistic as you guys are. I just don't see Lightning striking twice. But I will say there is a chance because this pitching staff is elite right now, especially with Chris Sale and Max Fried and Ronaldo Lopez coming out of nowhere to be that back end starter that we didn't know we needed. So I'm excited about that. Let's go from one baseball subject to another. Former Padres player Tucupita Marcano was banned permanently from Major League Baseball if they determine he placed hundreds of baseball bets, including betting on Pirates games, while he was on the Pittsburgh roster. Guys, this is the first player to be given a lifetime ban since 1924. That was Jimmy O'Connell. And remember, Pete Rose agreed to a lifetime ban because I was like, didn't Pete Rose do that? And it's like, no. Pete Rose agreed to a lifetime ban after being found guilty of, or after, I should say, after investigations concluded, he bet on baseball as a manager of the Reds. So this is a pretty big deal. Marcano bet over 150 grand on 387 baseball games. He didn't win a lot either, if you were wondering. He lost like over 95% of them. So pretty crazy stuff there. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There was a couple other players that had already gotten busted in this, but he was the first lifetime ban. And guys, this is only going to stem bigger and wider in all sports because the geofencing on these things right here, folks, they'll tell you who placed that bet and where the money was transferred, and it's all in paper trail, per se, in quotation marks, or electronic trail. So guys, don't do it. Don't bet on your damn sport. Bet on another one. If you play baseball, bet on basketball, football, women's soccer, all that stuff. Have fun, knock yourself out. But they will catch you. One of these, I think it was a Duke player in college baseball, said, goodbye college baseball, hello DraftKings, so he's done with it. He knew his priorities. I'm done with college baseball. Now I can gamble on the stuff. So just wait till your career's over or bet on another sport. But Larry, we'll throw it to you first, and we'll go to Todd, and we'll get Wayne's opinion on this. This is crazy, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. Larry, go ahead.
No, man, it's the ruling of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. It's very similar to the Jonte Porter situation in the NBA with Toronto.
Yep.
It's you are in a position where you are in the 1% of 1%ers being a major professional athlete. Why are you betting money that us common folk would love to have on a day-to-day basis doing dumb junk? I listen, you want to find something to play that's competitive? Go find your local cornhole tournament. Have yourself a blast. Whatever it takes. But if you just have the urge, look, and what's going to happen is the more states that legalize it to where it is easier to be accessible via your smartphone or your electronic device, it's going to become a sickness.
Yeah.
You're going to have people addicted. And then that's when it's really going to get to be a bigger issue, is when you got people that's big time athletes starting to have to face these bans because they would much rather gamble than be thankful for the position they've been placed in being a professional athlete. And it makes zero sense.
Makes
But
absolutely
they
zero
don't think
sense.
they're going to get caught. They just don't think they're going to get caught. They're not educated. These leagues have done a poor job, evidently, of educating these players to not gamble. Either that or they're so stupid, they don't listen to them anyway. Speaking of stupidity, Marcano, this Pirates player, he bet on 25 Pirates games, right, while he was assigned to the team. He was injured during all of them and lost every bet. Now, is that dumber than dumb or what? I mean, geez, oh man, you threw away your career gambling. And JJ said it. This is just the beginning. It's gonna happen frequently in all 5 major league sports: soccer, football, basketball, baseball, and hockey. Well, I don't know. I think the hockey players actually will have the most common sense, and they'll be caught the least. I really do.
They seem to, Todd. They seem to get in the least amount of trouble with this gambling stuff. You're right there.
Right, and you're going to see, I think it's going to be football and basketball players who are going to get in the most trouble. I really do. And baseball players maybe too, but the teams and the league has to do a good job preventing this betting from happening. Because what do these players see on television and all? They see all these betting commercials. You have all these casinos. The enticement is there. The opportunity is there. And they think they're not going to get caught. And guess what? They all will. There is a paper trail. It really is a sad story. I hate to see it, but we're going to see it more and more.
Yeah, we are. Wayne, your opinions on this real quick before we get to the 2 finals.
Man, I'd hate to use all my luck up on betting on a baseball or other game like that. I feel like I need to save my luck for when I get on the interstate here in Memphis. So no betting from me.
We can say the same here in Atlanta too. This place is batshit crazy.
Yo, absolutely.
Well, guys, the NHL Finals, a long-distance Stanley Cup Finals, Panthers versus Oilers. Who you got? I'll start this one off. I don't watch too much hockey, but dadgummit, I have gotten into it this summer. I have been watching almost every conference finals game and a couple of the quarterfinals games, and I've just been riveted. Lots of actions. 2 teams hitting their stride at the right moment. Both teams are averaging right around 3 goals a game in this postseason. Should be a high-scoring finals. I like the Panthers to overcome last year's loss in the finals. I think that experience will help get them over the hump this year. Plus, they're more healthy this time around. They were banged up last year. A guy playing with a dislocated ankle. Guy had a or a broken ankle or sprained ankle, something like that. Guy had a broken sternum. People had to put his pads on for him. I don't know which guy it was. I forget.
That
I'm
would
not going
be
to try and
Keith
pronounce his
Chuck
name.
is who that would be. And you want to talk about a tough hockey player, JJ. He's as tough as they come. He is the leader of the Panthers.
Yeah, he is their guy, and they go through him, and that's why I like the Panthers. Obviously, the one thing I think the Panthers need to do, Todd, we talked about this prior to the show, is Panthers got to cut down on the penalty minutes. They lead the postseason with 207 penalty minutes. They got to cut down on that if they want to hoist the Stanley Cup. Todd, who wins this one? I got the Panthers.
You mentioned the penalties. They've taken the most in the playoffs, but they've also killed the most. They stopped the New York Rangers' #1 vaulted power play and shut them down. And when you can do that, no matter how many penalties you take, you're going to win. Keith Jackson said it best in college football. Special teams, special teams, special teams. And the Panthers with Bobrovsky and net in the back end of those special teams, they're the best in the business in the NHL. And, their forecheck and their back check is wonderful. This is a team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes in the neutral zone. And if you make a mistake, they make you pay for it. Edmonton, on the other hand, is a wonderful story. They finished 5th in the West, but Chris Knobloch, who in his first year, he took over, 12 or 13 games in a season when Edmonton fired their head coach. He's done a magnificent job. And the New York Rangers all know about Chris Knobloch because he did a fabulous job coaching for them in the minors. And wherever Knobloch has gone when he coached junior hockey, wherever, he's won, and he's won big. And if anybody can overcome this, an underdog, it would be Edmonton, and they've got the best player in the game in Connor McDavid, who had a 100 assists this season. Last player to get 100 assists in a season, Wayne Gretzky, when he won it all for the Oilers in 84, 85, 87, and 88. It's a star-ridden series, but the team that stays on the box and wins the special teams and doesn't turn it over to neutral zone and gets the best goaltending will win it. Bob Skinner struggled early in the playoffs for Edmonton in net, but he came back with a great Western Conference series against Dallas, going 4-2 with a 1.91 GAA. That's goals against average. Skinner is a hot goaltender, and I'll tell you what, a hot goalie in hockey can overcome anything. And if you run into a hot goalie, it doesn't matter if you're an 8 seed or a 1 seed, you will go goodbye. And this is the finals, and they haven't had a team in Canada in the finals since 20, when it was a strike-shortened season, or not the strike-shortened season, it was the COVID season. Fans couldn't come in Canada. It was played in a neutral location. Now fans in Edmonton, they will be ready. The tickets are sky high, and Florida's trying to win its first cup. And to me, it's a great story. I thought the Rangers would beat Florida. They did not. They didn't play their A game.
Who you like,
did.
Todd?
It's going to be a magnificent final.
Who you like? Give us a winner.
I like Florida. I like Florida in 6 or 7.
We're the same. Larry, give us a quick pick. NHL Finals, man.
Yeah, I won't go as detailed as into it as TC did, but I'm going with Edmonton, and the reason being is because of that Dallas series. And to your point earlier, JJ, the NHL has made themselves more relevant again because you can actually find the games on TV and you can actually watch them. That helps everything. But TC, you make a great point, and the fact that Knobloch has been a winner everywhere he's went, and Edmonton has had to fight through some things to get to where they are. The fans are ballistic right now. They're just absolutely starving for a title. And when you go through that type of adversity to get to where you are, and you get lined up and you get on a mission, and you got arguably the best player in hockey on your team in McDavid, listen, anything can happen. But I think that they are on a mission. I'm going with Edmonton in 7.
I like it. I like it. Wayne.
That's not. You know what? That's not a. It can happen. There's no question about it. He'll have to have a good series, but he's also going to have to get a lot of help. And Florida, to me, has more depth than Edmonton. That's where I think the difference will be in the series.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great series. You're right. It's a hot goalie versus a hot team. Two teams again hitting their stride at the right moment. I'm excited to see how this one plays out. Wayne, what you got, man? Panthers or Oilers?
Well, I could take either one as long as it's not the Habs. That's the only thing I care about.
You know, a
They're
Red Wings fan
speaking
would
like a
say
true
that's the
Toronto
same
Maple
because,
Leafs fan.
well, you know, a Red Wings fan, you know, Detroit fans hated Colorado in the 90s with Patrick Waugh in net for the Avs. And, of course, Patrick Waugh's the head coach of the New York Islanders today. That was a bitter rivalry back in the day. You almost sound like a Red Wings fan when you say that, being a Toronto fan that you are. And you know, with Toronto, with Austin Matthews, Wayne, Toronto's future is bright. They just got to get more depth on their team.
Yeah, I keep hearing that, but I don't know.
Well, we're going to move on from the NHL to the NBA. And folks, remember, if you like the content, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and hit that notification button so you can get notified when our latest videos drop right here. Again, at ATL Prime Sports, everywhere across the board. Let's get in again from the NHL to the NBA. The NBA Finals are set. Mavericks versus Celtics. Who wins and why? Should be a really good series. Wayne, toss this one off for us. Tip it off for us, man. Who you
Well,
like,
I'm
the
gonna.
Mavs or the C's?
Well, I've been a Celtics fan for probably longer than any other team, so I'm just gonna start leaning on that. Plus, I've never really liked the Dallas organization.
Here we go. Nice and easy from our producer, Wayne. I love it. Larry, who you got,
Nice.
man?
As bad as it pains me to say it, I think the Celtics are going to win this series in 6 games. And the only reason I do is because Boston is a deeper team. They are more talented. 1 through 9, if that's the depth that they choose to go with, 9 deep in the roster. I just think Tatum and Brown are going to match up well with Luka and Kyrie. I think the difference makers are going to be Al Horford and the potential return of Kristaps Porzingis. They beat him both times in the regular season, but Porzingis is been that threat, and I know he's probably got some bad blood against Dallas in his time there, and
Yeah.
you could put the revenge factor in with that as well. But the fact still remains, and Jason Kidd is probably one of the best coaches the NBA has seen in a long time, and he doesn't get credit for how good he is. And he was really responsible for the majority of the Lakers championship run during the bubble season. And he's just a brilliant basketball mind. He has taken the scum of everybody else and put them alongside Luka and Kyrie, and they've gotten them to this point. But long story short, I think the Celtics have got too many weapons that can do things that are going to finally get them over the hump. One of the biggest factors again being the consistent mentality and leadership of Al Horford, the X factor in Porzingis, because we believe Tatum and Brown are going to do what Tatum and Brown does,
Yes.
and the rest will follow suit.
Yeah, in NBA Finals, both these teams averaging over 107 a game. Key to this series to me, it's going to be how well Boston switches on defense guarding Doncic and Irving. Will the switches result in layups or contested jump shots? Obviously, you want the contested jump shots, but Luka right now leading every statistical offensive category for the playoffs. It's absolutely an unbelievable playoff run what this guy has done. And I think what a lot of people aren't taking into account for is Luka Doncic has been a champion before as a young man in Croatian professional basketball or Yugoslavia, wherever it was, wherever he played, I forget. But they have a crazy atmosphere in those buildings. They got flares, they got smoke, they got LED lights going on and off like it's a darn football game. And he won a championship in that environment as a young man. I also think the villain aspect of Kyrie Irving is going to play a huge motivational factor in this game for the Dallas Mavericks. And it kind of goes to see where I'm leaning. I'm leaning with my guy, Luka. I wanted Luka in Atlanta. I dogged everybody for saying get Trae Young. The guy can score. This guy played professional basketball at 16 years old, and he's done everything he can to get to this moment right here. His first finals, I think him and Kyrie Irving are going to team up and do everything they can to disrupt Boston. And again, I think another thing that nobody wants to talk about, guys, Boston's got all the pressure. They've been told, hey, the media's saying, hey, if they don't win, it's a disgrace. This is the 1 year Boston should get in. So they got pressure on their side, and the Mavs are sitting back playing pretty. Just, hey, we're here. We're happy to be here. Let's go play basketball. So I like the Mavs in a 7-game series. I'm going to take the underdog. TC, what say you?
I'm taking Boston, no question. I think it'll be done in 6. Porzingis is the X factor. He's only played in 4 playoff games. He's ready for the series. He's healthy. Larry mentioned it. He would love nothing better to beat his old Dallas team, even though he says there's no hard feelings and he gets along with the players, and that could be true. But I'm telling you right now, as an athlete, there's nothing like beating your former team. And Boston's deeper, and nobody really talks about what a superstar Jason Tatum is. I mean, this is a guy that is a tick from a triple-double. This is one of the best players in the league. You know, Brown, we all know how great he is, but Boston has, 6 players in double figures. They're deeper. They play better defense than Dallas. You don't win 64 games during the regular season. I see Boston winning this in 6 games. Doncic is a great player. He'll probably carry him to a couple wins along with Kyrie. But depth, especially in any type of NBA Finals, is huge. And Boston's been the best team all year, and they'll be the best team in this series.
It should be a good one, guys. I think we all see it going deep. It wouldn't surprise me if Boston does take it. I just like the underdog mentality and the fact that there's no pressure on the Dallas Mavericks at the current moment. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Guys, we're going to throw a bonus topic in here. Let's give it a real quick thought. The WNBA is being talked about on a massive basis, which is awesome. I love it for all the women. But it's come down to 2 players. It's Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And narratives have been thrown in there. And I just want to get our quick thoughts on this. Wayne, why don't you tip this one off, man? We'll let you tip off another topic for us. Your thoughts on Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, and I think what the good it's done for the WNBA, which nobody wants to acknowledge, that I think this is good to have a hero and a villain. Whether you see Angel as the hero and Clark as the villain or vice versa, I think it's great for the WNBA. Wayne, what say you?
Yeah, I think it does add some excitement to an otherwise nearly, I wouldn't say ignored, but less watched sport. I really think, though, that at some point they need to either have the players or leaders on the team go to some of these marketing or something like that, schools, classes, training or something, because it's getting really off the script and almost a distraction.
Yeah, it to me, again, that is the key word, distraction. I think this story is distracting the good that is around the WNBA right now. That is ticket sales, viewership, attendance, everything's up. And it's all because of this draft class that just riveted us with 2 consecutive great March Madness tournaments 2 years in a row. Larry, your thoughts on this, and then we'll get Todd to close it out.
For those of you who can see on video,
Yeah.
ever since that moment, it has already been a story that was going to be written. Why do people continue to tune in to series like Grey's Anatomy? Why do people continue to watch series from years down? Because of the drama. People are attracted to the drama. And everybody knew Caitlin was going to be the main attraction when she stepped foot into the WNBA. Had it to the point to where Diana Taurasi in her 40s was talking about, hey, she got hers is coming. And everybody that has played against her has just absolutely been wearing her down physically since she showed up. All right. But because of the relationship they had when it was Iowa and LSU that is transformed into the WNBA, it's a more, I don't want to use the word toxic, but it's a more toxic, I don't even want to use the word demographic, but it really is. They're similar to Magic and Bird when they showed up on the scene in the NBA. They played each other in the
Correct.
title game. They came into the NBA at the same time. Magic won his title first, then Bird, and then Magic went on try to go on again, but they carried the NBA in a time to where it was on the verge of really collapsing. And
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark are going to do for the WNBA, is they are going to infuse life into it to the point to where they're going to save it. They ain't going to get to the point to where it's going to be money-making, revenue-producing this year, but it's going to have enough eyes, it's going to have enough ears, and it's going to have enough money spent into it to where it's going to be relevant for quite some time. And it's because of those two ladies, Miss Caitlin and Miss Angel.
Well, you got to
100%
think,
correct.
Larry. You just hit a nice comparison back to when Magic and Bird came into the league. The NBA was about to fold. The finals when Magic won it all against the Lakers and played center. Won it all against the Sixers. Magic played center in that game. And Game 6 of the finals against Dr. J in Philadelphia, the game was tape delayed. Could you imagine an NBA Finals being tape delayed today? Now it transits over to the WNBA. Nobody talked about the WNBA at all. It was an afterthought. If it wasn't for the NBA, the WNBA wouldn't be in business.
100%.
Now Kate Clark comes along, made 2 finals at Iowa, and you took them to the championship game twice. She's the number 1 player. She's number 1 player drafted. She makes $75,000 a year, but she makes between $10 and $20 million a year in endorsements. She's the number 1 player in the league. There's a lot of players that are jealous of her because she's coming in as a rookie and she's the number 1 paid player. What player in any other sport that's been a rookie that's came in without even playing a professional game, whether you step on the grass, the turf, the court, or the ice, and they're the number 1 paid player? It's never happened before. This is the first time. So obviously there's going to be jealousy among the players, and they're going to play rough with her. Now, it's okay to be physical. It's okay to play clean, tough, hard-nosed basketball and make it difficult on Caitlin Clark. Make her earn it. I have zero problem with that. The Pistons made Michael Jordan earn it. Okay, but what these players are doing now in this league with this dirty, it's not even professional basketball. It's inexcusable. It's wrong. And the WNBA commissioner needs to step up and stop it now with a suspension and fines. And Clark's teammates need to come to her defense, and they're not doing that. There's probably jealousy among her teammates, and of course, everyone else in the league is jealous too. People have brought race into this. I guess some of it's race. It's surely money. A lot of players in the WNBA, their sexual orientation is different than Caton's. There's a lot of things that are different. They're different from her. I just think it has to do with she's going to have to earn her stripes, and hopefully this will calm down, because believe me, if it was for Caton right now, we wouldn't be talking about the WNBA. JJ mentioned it earlier. Everything has gone up. The marketing, the money, everything. But this problem needs to be resolved, because Caitlin Clark could seriously get hurt.
Yeah, it needs to be policed a little bit better to upgrade the flagrant foul from the player Kennedy, I believe is her first or last name, on Caitlin. It should have been called a flagrant foul right off the bat. It wasn't a basketball play, clearly. But honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with race. I think it has the fact that Caitlin Clark is an exciting basketball player. She pulls up from the logo like Steph Curry, and no woman has ever done that before. She broke every women's basketball scoring records, and I think it comes with that territory. I personally think we need to get away from the race and just watch these 2 women play basketball, because they're both great athletes, and they're both doing exactly what Larry said. They are the Larry Bird and the Magic Johnson of the WNBA, and right now it's the saving grace. They're getting chartered flights. And again, look at the Dream effect right here in Atlanta. The Dream play at McCamish Pavilion in Georgia Tech. They moved both of the Fever games to State Farm Arena because of the demand for the ticket. And the average ticket's about, close to $200 to go see Caitlin Clark play for a decent seat. So, folks, this is real. This is exciting.
JJ, can I
Tell you,
say
folks,
something?
I have been watching the WNBA, and I'm not going to say I've never watched it before, hardly. And I used to cover it for the Dream early on in our Fan Zone days back on 8 a.m. radio. So this is exciting and great for women's basketball and women all over the country. And that's what we need to acknowledge that. This is it.
Well,
It's a great rivalry, and that's it. TC,
We
get
do,
your
but
final thoughts in.
JJ, there is some race involved in it, and I hate to say it. Cameron Brink, the number 2 player in the draft, she plays for the Los Angeles team. She believes, she stated today, that young white players in WNBA such as herself have privilege in the league. She would like to see her teammates who use they and them pronouns be accepted. You know, I hate to see stuff like this. I don't know who has privilege and who does not. I think whatever color or race you are, or where you're from, or whatever your sexual orientation is, it should be all left alone, because when the players step on the court, their teammates, all these players come from different backgrounds, different parts of the country, and I wish we would just throw this out now and just and be teammates, because that's the one great thing about sports, is sports brings people together no matter what their background is, what their politics are. I don't even want to know what an athlete's politics is. I can care less. We just need to get away from all this stuff in society, but it's only talked about in the media. The media drives 95% of this stuff. You go outside in our daily normal lives, wherever you live, this stuff is not spoken to about at all. It's only spoken to when the media brings it up.
That's why I have to respectfully disagree with you. I think the media is portraying this race game. I don't think the average person thinks that, but I could be wrong, because I'm just trying to watch basketball. Larry, let's get the final thought in on this real quick if you want one, and then we'll get our final thoughts and get out of here.
No, it's what TC said. TC and you and JJ, TC, y'all are saying the same thing. It's the dynamic is the media drives a narrative, because the media wants to create the friction. They want to create the tension. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, it's going to be, from an American point of view, this is going to be something that's always going to be around it. It's just unfortunate because, as TC said, and you said earlier too, sports is the avenue where we try to escape what's really going on in our day-to-day, worlds, atmospheres, and environments, and we can be together in one mind and one. We are one Atlanta Dream fan. If we're gonna cheer the WNBA, we're Atlanta Braves fans. We're dadgummit Memphis Tiger fans, and we in Memphis over there with JJ. With Wayne. Excuse me. We just all want to be together. Unfortunately, the media, because nobody's going to click on that. Nobody's going to click on, well, it's a good day, and Caitlin's in Indiana, and everybody's hunky-dory. Nobody's going to click on that. So the media has to drive something that is going to get clicks, likes, notices, content creation, and things of that nature. And it's unfortunate, because I would probably tell you 80% of what the media writes is probably untrue. But
there's no question, Larry. There's a lot of jealousy at Caitlin Clark, and maybe the players really don't like her. We really don't know. I mean, Angel Reese said that she liked Caitlin Clark when she played at LSU. She had respect for her. So I hate when the media turns around and divides us, because if you go out in everyday society, that's not like that. I mean, I have a ton of black friends, white friends, Hispanic friends, whatever. And we all get along. I mean, to me, this stuff has to stop with the media and society. And it really is unfortunate in today's world, because, athletes bring players together from all types of backgrounds. I mean, I played high school sports. I had 35 guys on our track team. 28 were black, 7 were white. We all got along, and when we get off the bus and play teams up in northern Michigan and run them, they were spooked the second they'd get off the bus, and I'd go, hey, man, that's okay. They bleed red just like you do, man. You'll be just fine. They were spooked when they go.
Guys, what a great show. Again, listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you like the content, give us a like, give us a subscribe. and hit that notification button so you get notified with our latest videos. Time for our final thought of the night. I'm going to say congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs baseball team advancing to their first Super Regionals since 2008. They will host NC State this weekend for a shot to go to Omaha in the Men's College World Series. Go Dogs! Larry, your final thought, man.
For the first time in franchise history, the Atlanta Hawks have the #1 overall pick. The NBA draft is just 3 weeks away. 2 days this time now. Instead of 1 day, it'll be 2 days. I don't know why in the world they figured that was necessary, but nevertheless, Atlanta in a draft that does not have a clear-cut #1 favorite has a chance to be able to put this team in a position and secure the needs of one said Trae Young that we mentioned earlier in the broadcast. Atlanta, don't screw it up. You got the opportunity. Don't overthink it. Get the best person that's the best need for the team and grow with that person, JJ, Trae, and whomever, and let's roll. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Todd, your final thought of the night.
Larry should be the PA announcer of the Hawks. I mean, they have a great one, but they should do it together. Him and the current guy from the Hawks, because they just have great deep voices, and Larry does a great job doing their own games. I can hear him on the PA when I listen to some of the games on the radio. Man, you kick ass, and you're going to be in the major leagues one day if you keep going at it. And I surely hope you are. Tier Jennings, speaking of kicking ass, the shortstop for Oklahoma, she had the game-winning home run against Florida to put him in the final. Now she led off with the game with a 2-run homer, and Oklahoma leads Texas 5-1 in the top of the 4th, and the shortstop for the Oklahoma Sooners is doing her Derek Jeter impersonation and doing it well. She is an absolute stud.
King, your final thought for the evening, my friend.
Well, my final thought is I'm wondering if my parking has run out. I'm going to have to get down the street here and check real quick because, I didn't pay for that much time.
Well, your season tickets are good for at least one overnight parking stay for the Memphis Tigers.
Maybe. But
Well, folks, that does it for us here at ATL Prime Sports. For Wayne in Memphis, Larry in Adairsville, Todd in Woodstock, I'm JJ Jurjevich right here in Lilburn, Georgia. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week, folks. Get you one.